John here from Ripewave Audio, and for this video I'd like to explore with you ways to enhance our test setup where we want to compare up to 3 AV receivers or processors simultaneously with our setup. If you've been following our channel, we have our Duke Audio ABC switchers that can quickly switch between AV receiver processor 1, 2, and 3 and output them to a common set of amplifiers. Now we have Emotiva amplifiers running for all our bass ear level speakers for the front, left, right, and center, side surrounds, rear surrounds, and then for our 2 rows of heights we have our vintage Sony TAN9000ES, and we have our powered subwoofers, and it will send the signal quickly to those by switching those wheels that is on them. But what about switching the source? Now I thought about having, let's say, 2 Apple TVs, but then you have to queue up the same content to go between the 2 of them at the same time. And I just really want to go into my Apple TV or my UHD Blu-ray player and queue it up, send that signal, and then quickly switch between multiple AV receivers. So how are we going to do this? Now I'm looking at switchers and splitters and what are the differences here. So this video here we're going to explore the 2, and we've gone about it both ways. And if we look at the diagram here, this is how we currently have it set up. The problem is, while I can switch between the 3 of these, I don't have a common source. And I'd have to take the cable off of receiver 1 and bring it to receiver 2, or processor 1 to processor 2. And that process, kind of disrupted the flow of me analyzing one versus the other. I want this to be as seamless as possible. So it's okay, let's introduce ideally a splitter. And I want to send that signal to 3 or more of these receivers or processors simultaneously. And you typically don't find the count of 3, so I think a 1x4 is the most common you see out there. So we could take our Apple TV and go to a 1x4 splitter using 3 of those outputs for test subject 1, test subject 2, and 3. And now we've got that same signal. I don't have to switch anything on the source side. I can just play that and then go to the switcher for the output from the pre-outs, and then that determines which receiver or processor are going to the common amplifiers and common speakers. What would be really good is if we could have a second source, but I don't think I want a 2x4 splitter, because that's letting that A/B decision of which source to use to happen at the splitter. I really want to be able to test out for these receivers and these processors how quick it is to switch from HDMI 1 to HDMI 2. So I really want to be able to send 2 sources simultaneously to each of these receivers or processors, and then test out things like switching between the 2. So in that case, I think I'm going to be better off with 2 splitters, 2 1x4 splitters, and have my ultra high definition Blu-ray player go to 1, and then that splits off to each of the 3 units, and then my Apple TV to the other splitter, and then that goes out to HDMI 2 of all these units. And that to me will give us the best experience. Well, when I started researching this, and ideally I wanted to get 8K capable splitters. When I went to look for this, I found that 4-channel 1x4 splitters are expensive. I found a couple that are out there. Monoprice sells the Blackbird 8K60 1x4 HDMI splitter. It also does audio extraction to Toslink optical. and to an analog left and right through a 1/8" mini jack. But it sells for $330 on the Monoprice site. Usually if it's on Monoprice, it's lower cost. You know, you're not going to find equivalent product elsewhere much lower than what Monoprice sells it at. I also found the BZBGear, which actually appears to be the exact same unit, just reskinned. I don't know who actually makes it. Monoprice maybe gets it from BZBGear, or maybe they both get it from somewhere else. And that one's even a little bit more, and at B&H Photo, $399. Has the same specs, etc. Both support HDMI 2.1, but I really didn't want to spend this much for this splitter. I wanted to see if I could get away with something really cheap. So I went on Amazon and I found this AOPPT, AOPPT device. There's actually several variants of this. I think it's all the same thing, probably all made in China with different brands on it. I found this one, I bought it for $17.41, although I looked today and it's back up to $38.99. So I got it here. It's nothing special. It's as low down and basic as you can get. It's only 2 channels, but it's 8K. And it says bi-directional, so you could either go 1 in, 2 out, or 2 in, 1 out. So I said, okay, if it's going 1 in, 2 out, I was hoping it would be splitting that. But what happens in reality is, and this is a power device, it doesn't come with a USB power jack. You'd have to find one for yourself. It just gives you the USB cable. But I actually physically have to push this button to go A to B. And that introduces latency. If I have my RMC 1 on output 1, and let's say this Anthem AVM 70 on output 2, and I want to swap, I've got to push the button, and then I've got to wait for all the handshaking to occur. It has to figure out how to handle the signal, and that takes time, and I don't have the patience for that. So I just thought, while this is 8K, I said, well, maybe I can get away with just 2 channels, and I'll do 2 units at a time, and I'll switch it over to the 3rd unit, and I'll do those 2 units at a time. But this is not as big of a bargain as I thought it was going to be. It really isn't doing what I want it to do. I want to be quick when I make these switches. So I looked further, found several devices from a company called Orei, O-R-E-I, and this company has a regular website, and that gave me a little more confidence. This is a little more mainstream of a company than what those other devices were on Amazon. I want to find something cheaper than those 8K devices that I found on the first pass. I don't want to spend $300 if I don't have to. If it came down to it, I probably would. But this company here seems to have some good selections. They have 1x2s, 1x4s, 1x8s out there. But most of their models, all but one, are 4K. But giving up on the 8K capability and going to a 4K splitter, to me, makes sense. That was the better compromise to make. The Apple TV and the ultra high definition Blu-ray player, they're both 4K units. Unless I'm doing my PlayStation 5, which is over here, I'm not going to have the 8K capability. I'll probably keep this thing around in case I want to do something with the 8K and put up with the latency. Or eventually, I'm hoping that the 8K stuff will come down in price. This company does have an 8K unit, but it's a 1x2. But one thing you'll see in the specifications for this, as well as the Monoprice Blackbird and the BZBGear, the 8K models that we looked at earlier that are over $300, what they have in common is they all have EDID support. This is supposed to keep the signal stable as you're putting this out. So it's trying to, when the Apple TV or the Blu-ray player makes a connection, it's looking to the TV, the end device, say what are your capabilities are, because that's the signal I want to send you a compatible signal. And what you're able to do this is lock in the type of end device right at the splitter so that there isn't any disruption there. And they do ask that you send the signal to a common TV. Well, I'm actually, in reality, only going to one TV. These are designed for sports bars where you have multiple TVs all broadcasting the same game. And that's really the main use case for these, but I'm doing a unique use case where I'm testing out AVRs and AV processors. In comparing the models in their catalog, I didn't look at their HDMI 1.4 stuff. They still sell them. They're lower cost, but I wanted to be at least HDMI 2.0, 2.0B. And they do have quite a bit of them. 1x4 is exactly what I want. Some of the models do downscaling to 1080p. I don't really need that because my television is capable of 4K. So I don't need the downscale. A couple of models they have do audio extraction to optical and left and right audio. I didn't need that either because really that's the job of the receiver or the processor to do. Now there are use cases out there for that, but for what I'm doing as far as testing, I don't need the audio extraction. But if you have a use case, take a look at those models. So without needing the 8K, not needing the downscaling, and not needing the audio extraction, and really wanting at least 3 outputs, the UHDS-104 1x4 model seems to be perfect for me. And the price is $40. And when you go to Amazon to get this, and it is available on Amazon, it's $35. So not too much different. In fact, if you compare it to the regular price of this cheap splitter, which is only 2 channels, and I have to push the button, it's actually less money because this is normally $39. So I've got one of these here. And here it is in the box. And I was pleased to see how small this is. Let's open it up. It reminds me of the breakout box that came with my Samsung TV. That's a little bigger than this, and this is in a nice metal box. It looks like it's well made. It is powered, so you have to use this adapter cord. But another benefit over this one just came with a USB cable. This comes with actually a wall plug. So a regular power supply in this. So I'm going to hook this up, see if this really does the job. There's a little, so essentially on the front here, you've got power indication, whether it's seeing signal from the input, and then what it's putting out, which channels are connected. Output 1, output 2, output 3, output 4. There's a service USB port. There is an EDID setting, either standard or television. I'll have to read the manual on what the best setting is there. And when you turn around to the back, you have HDMI in, out 1, out 2, out 3, and out 4. And of course, that's the place where you put the power supply into. So we'll get this hooked up. But before we do, I also got some new cables to facilitate this. I get these on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. And they're not expensive cables. I think this was a package of 2 for just under $20. These are 10-foot links because I want to be able to run these from where the Apple TV is and to whatever receiver or processor I have under test. So some new cables are good. I look for those that are 8K and certified. So HDMI 2.1 certified is what I'm looking for when I buy cables. And you're able to get essentially for $10 a piece for 10-foot links. To me, this has been good enough. I haven't noticed any real issues, but maybe more discerning videophiles will feel otherwise. But for what I'm doing here in the testing, I believe these are adequate. Chime in if you feel differently. What I like about these, the other thing I did when I chose these HDMI cables is I actually prefer the this jacket better than the braided. There's so many of the cables are coming out now with braided cables. I like the feel of this. And I also like these metallic ends that are very thin but sturdy with a strain relief on them. And here's the Marantz connection. So we got it wired up all now. We got power, we've got the input, 1, 2, and 3, all going out. And let's see how it performs with a variety of sources. So now the only thing that's putting latency to this should be the TV itself. So we've got right now HDMI 2 on the TV. We'll switch to HDMI 3, which is the Marantz. And now that's working. And then we'll switch over to RMC1. And that's working there. So there's still some latency because I have to have the TV. It's as fast as the TV can switch between these sources. So the switch on the front, EDID, when standard is used, the unit will use its built-in, meaning the splitter unit, EDID settings. In this mode, the video output will be set to 1080p 60 Hz, and the audio output to LPCM2 channel. Use this mode if there are only display problems. Well, I don't want just 2-channel audio. Now, if we set it to TV mode, when this mode, input EDID, is set to copy out 1, the unit supports downscaler formats. Functions. Oh, it still supports downscaler. If the HDMI out 1 port is connected with a 1080p, all outputs is bypassed. If the out 1 port is connected to a 4K TV, 4K output is bypassed. 1080p output will be downscaled. The question is, can we still get multi-channel output with this splitter? So let's go and pick some music. And we're going to try spatial audio. So if we do this, do we get, and we're getting Atmos. So it is taking multi-channel through when we set this to TV. Now this appears to be handling what I want. The question is, can I hear the same stuff? What I did was had the same source go to the Marantz, the Emotiva, and the Anthem simultaneously, and I go over to the Duke Audio and I change the switch, and it's seamless. They're all putting out audio simultaneously. When I go to the television, I'm not worried about. When I switch between Emotiva, Anthem, and Marantz, it's okay that it's some latency. I'm not testing that out right now. I'm really not looking for a quick switch on the video so much. I just want that persistent multi-channel feed going to all three on the audio, and then I can do that test, and whatever's selected on the TV can be the video, but when I go to the Duke Audio, I'm hearing the audio for whatever receiver or processor is selected. Mission accomplished. So this is very helpful for me as a reviewer. As some of you aren't reviewers, what are your thoughts even just for your own listening and what you're trying to do? Does a splitter like this, do you have applications for a splitter like this? That feedback would be useful to the Ripewave audio community. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to this Ripewave audio community. And if you want to take your involvement to the next level, consider joining our Patreon channel at www.patreon.com/Ripewave. You can always hit that one-time thanks donation button right here on the YouTube channel. And as always, you can do the bell notification so you'll be notified when the next video is posted. Until then, keep evolving your audio experience.